Parshat Mishpatim opens with a discussion of the topic of Eved Ivri, a Jewish slave. And the scenario is as follows. If a Jew steals from his fellow man and unfortunately is not able to reimburse him monetarily, then an alternative form of compensation is to become the victim's slave. The Torah, however, limits the length of time that the thief can serve the victim to 6 years. After 6 years, the Torah tells us the owner must allow the slave to be freed. However, the exception to this rule is if the slave decides, I love this opportunity, I love the home that I've been provided with, I love my master, I love my current life, then he's allowed to stay a slave and remain a slave forever, but he has to go through the following process. He has to be taken to Beis Din, taken to the Jewish court, where they pierce his ear against a doorpost. And the question is why? I understand that most slaves probably will be very happy to be freed and will have no interest in remaining a slave after their 6 years are up. However, if a slave decides, I really love my master, I love my life, so let him be. Why does he have to go to Beis Din? Why does he have to go to court and get his ear pierced? Rashi answers part of this question by quoting the famous opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai tackles the question of why he gets specifically his ear pierced and answers that this is the same ear that heard at Har Sinai when the Jews were being given the Torah and were told, Lo signov, do not steal. The very same ear that heard the commandment, do not steal, went ahead and stole regardless, and for that the ear deserves to be pierced. But if you think about it, this somewhat strengthens our original question. After all, if the reason that the ear specifically is being pierced is because this is the same ear that heard on Mount Sinai that we shouldn't steal, why are we waiting 6 years to pierce the slave's ear? He hasn't stolen in 6 years. The theft occurred many years ago. As a matter of fact, if you think about it, the scenario could very well arise where an individual slave decides, you know what, I've paid my dues, after 6 years I no longer am interested in being a slave, and he never gets his ear pierced at all, even though he did once steal. The Shemen HaTov elaborates on this opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai in Rashi, and provides a little bit of a different answer. And he explains as follows. We have to put into context exactly what the Torah is doing when it allows a thief to become a slave. More or less, the Shemen HaTov writes, we're giving the servant an opportunity to enter a rehab program. He has 6 years to see what it's like to be a servant, what it's like to be a slave, a different experience, hopefully a less enjoyable experience, and during that time, he'll come to appreciate what it means to be a free man. And he'll want to go back and become free at the end of 6 years. If he doesn't, however, then it shows that he really did enjoy his experience as a slave. And the problem with that is that he became complacent. He became happy being stagnant, not growing in Torah, not growing in Judaism. It indicates that this person is the type of individual who just doesn't care about growth. And that type of person is the type of person who he refers to as somebody with stimas ha'ozen, whose ears are closed. Why? Because in addition to hearing lo signov at Har Sinai, like Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai quotes, the Jews also stated and proclaimed na'aseh v'nishma when it came to being given the opportunity to receive the Torah. We will do and we will hear. We will hear with our ears. That doesn't only mean that we agree to follow in the ways of the Torah and then hear what they're all about. It's a cycle. We're going to perform commandments, and then we're going to hear about them, learn about them further, explore them, see what a beautiful opportunity it is to be B'nai Torah, to be Jews, to be growing, to becoming closer to Hashem. That's the Nishma. That's exactly what our ears are there to do. We heard Lo Signov, but we also are supposed to use our ears for Nishma in the Torah, to hear the Torah, to explore it, and to grow. And that is what this slave is totally missing the point on. He has no idea that he was put there specifically so that it would enlighten him and remind him, what a beautiful opportunity I have as a Jew to grow in Torah and mitzvos, not to remain stagnant, not to illustrate to the world that I'm happy being nothing more than a slave. Specifically at the point where the slave is no longer required to be a slave, but he insists, no, this is my preference. That's the time, says the Shemen HaTov, that we pierce his ear, because it's at that moment that he's indicating he doesn't care about growing. He doesn't care about removing the stigma of being a slave, about removing slavery from his life and serving only Hashem and growing closer to Hashem in Torah and mitzvos. He's happy being stagnant, he's complacent in his lifestyle, and that is a very big issue. I think that the lesson in this Dvar Torah applies to all of us each and every day. We're all given opportunities to grow at various times during the week, during the year, and it's very important, just like it's important that the Eved Ivri, that the Jewish slave, takes advantage of his time when he's allowed to be free. So too, when we're free of our weekly obligations in school, at work, and we find ourselves with some free time, we have to make sure that we focus it on Torah, on the Na'aseh and the Nishma, and not on being slaves to our everyday mundane lives. Have a great Shabbos.